Discover the amazing moment a shy girl transformed a millionaire's baby's crying on a plane. Emily took a deep breath, squeezing the strap of her backpack tighter as she boarded the packed flight from Denver to New York. Each step felt heavy with expectation. She was loaded with dreams of becoming a child psychologist, a goal that shimmered brightly yet loomed dauntingly in her mind. As she slipped into her cramped economy seat, heart racing with the anxiety of being caught in the sights of so many passengers, she saw the well-dressed businessman next to her engrossed in his laptop and phone. His screen flickered with numbers and charts, while her world felt saturated with whispers of worry that danced like shadows around her. The wailing baby seated a row ahead cut through her thoughts, magnifying the tension that thickened the air. Emily's stomach knotted as she recognized something deep within. A familiar pull beckoned her, an instinct to help, to soothe. Memories of her own tumultuous childhood surfaced, where simple kindness had made monumental differences. But here she was, trapped in a body that betrayed her with hesitations. Should she act? She could dive into the unknown, break the silence, and risk rejection from the very parents who felt overwhelmed and helpless. As the baby's wails escalated to a fever pitch, she could barely breathe. 1,000 doubts flooded her mind. What if they rejected her offer? What if the baby just needed a solid hour of screaming? She could disappear into herself, as she had done countless times when social pressures mounted, but she felt a tilt in her heart. The passengers around her flicked annoyed glances, whispers simmering like a boiling pot, each glance a harsh reminder of her own insecurities. She wrestled with the clash of wanting to hide and longing to reach out. Just then, she inhaled sharply and mustered her courage. Emily could feel the burn of her cheeks as she stepped into the aisle, her heart a cacophony of dread and resolve. The parents, frazzled and worn, barely noticed her at first. But when she spoke, her voice surprisingly steady, she slowly drew their attention. Engaging them sincerely, she suggested ways to soothe their child, remembering the gentle ways she had been calmed in her youth. As clarity settled in, her timid pulse matched the flicker of hope in their eyes. The businessman beside her peeled his gaze away from the glow of his screen, shifting his focus as empathy crept into his expression. Emily felt a small surge within, the stark contrast of their worlds colliding. Yet, as laughter spilled into the aisles and the atmosphere began to thaw, she felt the edges of her own unworthy thoughts tighten around her. Was she really capable of making an impact? Did her quiet nature hold enough power to shift the course of this flight? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the conversation blossomed between her and the parents, Emily began dissecting her own bubbling ambitions, revealing the intricacies of her aspirations to David, whose interest piqued. In this moment, he began to question his own values, spurred on by Emily's honesty about her anxious journey through life. An unexpected tension enveloped their exchange, illuminating the chasm between their unfulfilled dreams. Just when they were ready to sketch a blueprint for change, an incredible fusion of business savvy meeting compassionate insight, the captain's voice zipped through the cabin. With the plane landing and the enigmatic warmth of connection wrapping around her, Emily felt confidence surge within her. Meanwhile, David grappled with the pangs of realization and uncertainty about what mattered most amidst the swirling ambitions of the corporate world. Just as their destinies began to intertwine, a flight attendant interrupted the moment. The urgency to buckle up hung like a fragile thread over them, leaving unanswered questions swirling. Would this fleeting encounter ignite lasting transformation, or would it be just another missed opportunity, lost in the skies at 30,000 feet? As the plane skidded onto the runway, the vibrations reverberated through Emily's bones, cutting sharply through the haze of exhilaration that had enveloped her moments before. Despite the thrill of this encounter with David, she felt the walls of her reality constricting once more, that familiar feeling of diminishment rushing back in as she mentally calculated her next steps. The flight attendant's voice faded into the background as Emily processed everything: the laughter, the smiles, the warmth. Had she truly contributed something meaningful? Or had her brief moment of bravery merely masked the ever-present fear of returning to silence? Disembarking from the plane, Emily forced herself to breathe deeper and keep her shoulders back. In the midst of her internal dialogue, David caught up with her in the terminal, his gaze intent, sparking a flicker of doubt in her heart. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but you've really got something special," he said, words punctuated by the busy noise of travelers. "You have a way to connect with people, it's impressive." Her pulse quickened at his acknowledgement, wrapping her in a blanket of validation she had never sought. It felt strange, exhilarating, but also terrifying. The sensation of being perceived turned her feelings inward. Did that mean she was capable of influencing others beyond the confines of her aspirations? She nodded but felt a wave of hesitation crash against her newfound confidence. "Thank you," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just trying to figure it all out." David tilted his head slightly, studying her. "You're on the right path. You're gifted at understanding people. Have you thought about taking that further?" His question hung in the air, enveloped by the cacophony of airport chatter. Emily wanted to instinctively retreat from the possibilities he opened, but she was determined to fight against it. Her heart was still emboldened by her earlier actions. "Actually, yes. I'm pursuing a career in child psychology," but there it was, the familiar ghost of doubt lurking behind her words. "But it's hard," she confessed, drawing a faint frown across David's brow. "I feel like my shyness holds me back." "You speak with such clarity and calm," he countered, seeming genuinely perplexed. "It feels real, authentic. Trust that part of yourself. People need what you have to offer." His words ignited an inner conflict. Did she truly possess that authenticity? The fear of being dismissed sparked once more. What if they don't respond well? What if I can't help? David leaned closer, sincerity anchoring his conviction. "The real question is, what if you can? Each time you face that fear, it shrinks a little more. You took a leap here, don't let it be just a moment." His encouragement stabilized her swirling thoughts, forcing something within her to shift. With every ounce of deliberation, she realized the truth: growth demanded resilience. As they exchanged contact information, Emily sensed the weight of expectation, heavy but invigorating, settle on her shoulders. The thought of pursuing her dream with determination sent a thrill of purpose through her veins. With a mix of hope and trepidation, she turned to David once more. "How do I even start?" she asked, her voice trembling with the enormity of the question. "Let us talk over coffee. I know some people you might want to connect with," he replied, his eyes flashing with possibility. The prospect of new connections excited and terrified her at the same time, igniting a lingering sensation of uncertainty. As they walked toward the exit, Emily was faced with a choice: cling to her fears or embrace the chance to grow. Little did she know, this was just the beginning. The next few steps would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, leading her toward a confrontation that could reshape her journey forever. Would she be able to face not only her own insecurities but also a brewing storm within the world around her? The sound of the bustling airport faded behind her as Emily stepped into the cool, open air outside. A wave of determination washed over her, pushing against the suffocating tendrils of doubt that had always surrounded her. David's words replayed in her mind, a reassuring mantra. She was capable, she was on a path that had the potential to transform her life. Yet, the question loomed large: what did it mean to take the first step? Her feet moved instinctively toward a nearby coffee shop, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee entwining with the cool breeze, drawing her closer to that warm haven of comfort. Sitting down at a solitary table, she glanced around at the hum of conversation and the laughter of friends gathered together. There, in that vibrant setting, she felt an odd mixture of inspiration and fear clawing at her resolve. The weight of this new reality pressed on her. Would a few conversations over coffee with David's contacts really be enough to propel her forward? What if the vulnerability she felt would only be met with indifference? In the solace of her thoughts, a small flicker of excitement broke through. She could choose to embrace this moment, to learn, to connect. David had seen something in her, something worth exploring, and that recognition kindled a flame of potential she had long disregarded. She recalled a lecture from her university professor about the unpredictability of human interaction and connection. You never truly know the impact you can have on someone until you take that leap, he often said. Perhaps David's belief in her was that leap. As she sipped her coffee, the bitterness blended with the sweetness of resolve. In that moment, she envisioned her future, the children she could help, the lives she could touch. Fueled by this vision, Emily reached for her phone, checking the Notes app where she had jotted down ideas about her career path and aspirations. Her fingers danced across the screen as she typed a list of goals: connect with David's contacts, schedule shadowing experiences, volunteer at local support centers, attend seminars. Each item etched into her vision not only fueled her ambition but also solidified her commitment to grow beyond her current limitations. The task ahead was steep, and she'd need to actively confront her shyness. She recalled how she had felt stepping out of her comfort zone on the plane. Each laugh shared with David had chipped away at the walls that encased her insecurities. What if she embraced every bump in the road as an opportunity to learn something new? But the voice of doubt persisted, challenging her resolve. What if they don't accept you? What if you stumble? It echoed loudly, but Emily didn't have room for that anymore. She could confront that voice. The next encounter could be pivotal. Finishing her coffee and feeling as if she had gathered an arsenal of determination, Emily decided it was time to follow through on the boldness she had felt just hours before. She texted David, proposing a time and place for their coffee meetup. As she hit send, adrenaline surged through her, exhilaration mingled with anxiety, excitement blending with fear. This was a commitment, a turning point. As she sat back, observing the vibrant life around her, she sensed a shift within. The path of self-discovery lay unfurling before her, shrouded in uncertainty yet glimmering with possibilities. Unbeknownst to her, the next encounter with David would not only challenge her perception of herself but would also introduce her to hidden complexities in human relationships, compelling her to reevaluate everything she thought she knew about connection. Would she be able to navigate through the intensity of those revelations without retreating into her shyness once more? Emily's determination surged as she waited for David at the designated coffee shop, her mind racing through scenarios of their upcoming meeting. It was no longer just another casual conversation, it felt monumental. With every second that ticked by, she felt a push and pull in her stomach, the weight of uncertainty battling against her resolve to break free from her inhibitions. The door swung open, and in walked David, his warm smile instantly lighting up the room. He approached her table with a casual confidence that both encouraged and intimidated her. "Hey, Emily. Ready to dive into networking?" His enthusiasm bounded toward her, pulling her back into her commitment. "Absolutely," she replied, attempting to embody the same zeal, though her heart raced beneath the surface. She was grateful for his presence. He was a reminder that this was not just her journey alone. As they exchanged pleasantries, Emily focused on grounding herself. Each engaging moment with David began to chip away at her walls, hinting at the potential within her that she often overlooked. After ordering another round of coffee, they settled into deeper conversation. David shared anecdotes about his experiences with various contacts, people who had shaped his journey, mentors who had seen potential in him before he could see it himself. His words resonated, restirring that inner motivation within her. If he could conquer his uncertainty, why couldn't she? "Have you ever felt an initial hesitation when approaching someone new?" she asked, feeling brave enough to delve further. It was as if she was consciously testing the waters, probing her own fears through him. "Of course," he agreed, leaning in, his tone sincere. It's a part of the process. Every connection has its risks, but they often lead to incredible opportunities. As he spoke, she observed his sincerity, his conviction. It was contagious. Their discussion morphed from professional aspirations to personal revelations, a tapestry of life experience emerging from their interaction. Emily listened intently, processing each word. She realized that vulnerability was not a weakness, it was a human connection, a space where individuals could offer support and assistance to one another. Encouraged by David's perspectives, she spoke of her aspirations within the realm of social work. "I've always felt drawn to helping people, especially children," she confessed, surprising even herself with the clarity of her words. "But stepping into this field feels daunting." "Don't let that daunting feeling deter you," David replied thoughtfully. "Every great impact starts with a single step, just like you're doing now. You're already taking the leap." His faith in her translated into a newfound confidence that bubbled up within, disrupting the creeping shyness that had long held her hostage. Emily felt a spark of excitement as the conversation shifted back to practical strategies, brainstorming potential contacts who could introduce her to new experiences. Through David's suggestions, Emily's mind began to expand further beyond just a list of goals. She envisioned real connections, ongoing mentorship, and the kind of relationships that could further her vision. Would the key to her growth involve stepping out even more, reaching beyond the comfortable shores of conversations into the uncharted waters of actionable relationships? As their discussions wrapped up, David dropped a more significant challenge. "How about we attend a local seminar next week? It's focused on community engagement, no better place to meet people in your field." The prospect of standing alongside other professionals thrummed through her, both exhilarating and terrifying. Could she face the crowded room of strangers, armed only with her emerging confidence? A moment of silence filled the air as she weighed the opportunity, a stark reminder of how much she stood to gain. "Let us do it," she finally said, meeting David's gaze with unexpected boldness. As she spoke the words, Emily felt a rush of empowerment washing over her. This was a promise she was making not just to David but to herself. The path was still unclear, but she was ready to chase after it, ready to uncover not just potential paths but the woman she could be. In that moment, she realized her journey had only just begun. The thrill of the unknown pulsed through her veins, fueling her commitment to embrace the unexpected. But as they concluded their meeting and she prepared to step out into the world again, a twinge of doubt suddenly gripped her. What if the seminar held more than just opportunities? As curiosity mingled with anxiety, she couldn't shake the feeling that hidden challenges awaited. Would she be able to navigate what the next week would bring, or would she retreat into the shadows of her comfort zone once more? The week fluttered by, each day adding to Emily's anticipation and dread of the upcoming seminar. As the hours passed, she often found herself paralyzed by the thought of mingling with established professionals. What if she couldn't hold her ground? What if her aspirations fell short of their expectations? Despite these gnawing insecurities, a flicker of determination urged her on. After all, stepping outside her comfort zone was the very essence of growth. As the day approached, Emily spent her evenings researching the speakers scheduled to present, familiarizing herself with their work. She pulled out a notebook, writing down potential questions and topics she could engage with during discussions. This wasn't merely preparation, it was a strategic exercise improvising confidence in an uncertain situation. Each question she formulated was a step toward overcoming her fears. On the morning of the seminar, Emily carefully chose her outfit, a navy blue blazer over a crisp white blouse, paired with tailored trousers. It was her way of embodying professionalism without losing her sense of self. As she stood in front of the mirror, she practiced her introduction, a ritual that felt foreign yet invigorating. "Hi, I'm Emily," she whispered to her reflection, awkwardly smiling back. But her voice gradually steadied, infused with the resolve she had cultivated over the past week. This newfound self-assurance didn't shield her from the looming anxiety as she entered the seminar hall, a space already buzzing with conversation. The myriad of voices enveloped her, sending her pulse racing. She clutched her notebook tightly, its pages representing countless hours of introspection and planning. Would all of this be enough? As she navigated through the crowd, scanning the room for David's familiar face, she couldn't help but feel like an imposter. A wave of self-doubt crashed over her as she overheard snippets of industry jargon and impressive accomplishments. Their confidence was palpable, and she felt a painful contrast to her own early career aspirations. Finally, she spotted David, comfortably engaged in conversation with a group gathered near the refreshment table. He caught her eye and gestured for her to join him, his smile as warm as ever. "You made it!" he exclaimed, his enthusiasm instantly infusing her with energy. As introductions flowed, Emily realized that the magic of David's encouragement was rooted in her ability to hold her own in this space. The sincerity of her aspirations piqued interest among the attendees, who were eager to share insights and experiences. Each exchange challenged her perceptions, pushing her boundaries, inching her closer to the woman she wished to become. In a lull between conversations, Emily found herself beside a woman discussing mental health initiatives in schools. Summoning every ounce of courage, Emily interjected, "I'm particularly interested in how different programs adapt to address diverse needs." The words spilled out before she could fully process them, an impulsive leap, but she could feel the exhilaration blooming within her. As the woman turned to her, eyeing her with genuine interest, Emily realized that in that instant, she was no longer a mere observer but an engaged participant. They discussed challenges and innovative solutions. Ideas mentioned during this exchange danced through Emily's mind, illuminating her vision. With each conversation, her doubts began to dissipate. It was exhilarating yet unnerving, the thrill pushing her to expand her boundaries even more. But just as she began to feel comfortable, her focus was shattered by a sudden commotion at the other end of the hall. A man's voice rose above the murmur, frustration evident. "Why can't you just quiet her down?" he snapped, referencing a disturbance that erupted, the wailing of a small child cutting through the seminar's professional atmosphere. She could see the distressed mother cradling her infant, a gesture that seemed both loving and helpless. Suddenly, a choice crystallized before Emily. Her instinct to care propelled her toward the source of the chaos. She could either retreat into her comfort or step in, fueled by her untapped drive to assist. As her feet automatically carried her closer to the scene, Emily took a deep breath. This moment felt bigger than her anxieties. It was a chance to redefine her own narrative. Could she channel her social work aspirations effectively in this chaotic moment, or would she falter among the disapproving gazes of the attendees? The decision had never been clearer. What she didn't yet know was how this very situation would test the resilience she had begun to cultivate, forcing her to confront not just her fears, but her identity in ways she never anticipated. As Emily approached the wailing child, her heart raced, not only from the distance she was traversing but from the weight of the responsibility that lay ahead. The small crowd's eyes shifted to her, suspicion mingling with expectation. She could almost feel the collective breath being held, awaiting her next move. The mother's frantic expression tugged at her intuitively compassionate nature, and in that moment, Emily's uncertainty began to dissolve. Reaching the mother, she knelt down to bring herself to the child's eye level. "Hi there," she said softly, her voice calm and steady, contrasting the surrounding turmoil. The child's small, tear-streaked face blinked at her in surprise, and for a heartbeat, the noise seemed to soften, as if the world had paused to witness this simple connection. The mother looked at her with a mix of gratitude and desperation. "I've tried everything," she whispered, her voice cracking under the strain. Emily could feel the heaviness of the moment, an understanding that transcended words. Her mind raced through an array of strategies she had learned in her training. "Sometimes, a gentle distraction can help," she murmured, pulling a small, colorful keychain from her pocket, something she usually kept as a stress reliever. It had a soft jingle, and she waved it gently, capturing the child's attention. The child's cries faltered as he focused on the sound, his small hands reaching out for the distraction. Emily felt a thrill of accomplishment coursing through her. In helping this child, she was not just bridging the gap between chaos and calm, she was reconstructing her own identity in the face of adversity. People began to shift their body language, moving from skeptical observers to engaged supporters. She glanced up and caught David's encouraging nod among the crowd, an anchor in an uncertain sea. There was something about taking action that galvanized her spirit and reinforced her resolve. The power of transformation lay not only in her skills but in the very act of stepping forward, a tangible defiance against her earlier fears. As the child's cries diminished, Emily turned to the mother. "Is there anything else I can help with?" she asked, proud of the newfound assertiveness echoing in her voice. "Oh, thank you," the mother said, her eyes glistening with relief. "I was just so overwhelmed." As they spoke, Emily felt the collective energy of the attendees shift. Instead of judging her, they were engaging with her story. From the periphery, Emily could see the murmurs of admiration exchanging between them as they exchanged glances. However, not everyone shared in the approval. One attendee, a polished man in a sharp suit, stepped forward, his demeanor cold and clinical. "This is hardly appropriate," he interjected, his voice slicing through the warm atmosphere she had forged. "We're professionals here, not caretakers." His words stung, a stark reminder of the insecurities that had plagued her before the seminar. But instead of collapsing under his scrutiny, she felt an unexpected surge of resilience. "Perhaps it's exactly what we need," she countered, her tone steadying as if reclaiming the authority she had felt just a moment ago. "Empathy is essential to professional integrity." A significant silence enveloped the group. The contrast between her compassionate intervention and his rigid perspective highlighted an undeniable tension, confronting not just their views, but her very right to exist within this professional realm. Emily could feel her confidence trembling just beneath the surface but chose to embrace it, recognizing the value of her presence. As she surveyed the faces around her, she realized that this moment was pivotal, dually reinforcing her nascent identity and challenging societal expectations. The wailing child had become a catalyst for her personal growth, yet it had also uncovered a confrontation that was unresolved, a battle for recognition, a test of personal worth against professional expectation. Just as she contemplated her next words, she noticed the mother's nod of appreciation. And the soft hum of support drifting through the crowd. This newfound confidence gave her the strength to acknowledge both the man's judgment and her own fear. She was on the precipice of transformation, caught between two worlds, one of judgment and the other of acceptance. Emily took a breath, ready to articulate her thoughts when the child suddenly burst into laughter, completely flipping the mood of the hall. They all turned to marvel at the unexpected joy, yet within that moment, an inquiry ignited in her mind. In this charged atmosphere, could she synthesize her role as a professional with her innate capacity for compassion? Would she continue to navigate the fine line between vulnerability and strength, or would she succumb to fear once more? As the laughter echoed, setting a light-hearted tone amidst the tension, she realized that her journey was just beginning, a journey filled with reflections on her worth and the impact she could make in the lives of others, all while continuing to confront her own insecurities. But the moment hung in the air, a question lingering unspoken. What would it take for her to not only embrace her identity but to carve a path that would redefine her future? Emily's thoughts spiraled as the sound of laughter faded. She recognized the shift within her, an urge to challenge her doubts rather than retreat into the shadowy corners of her mind. The man in the suit still stood nearby, his expression a mixture of disdain and curiosity, and she sensed the weight of his scrutiny pressing down on her. Yet the laughter had created a spark, illuminating the path she needed to tread. "Why are we here?" she asked, grasping for clarity in the immediate chaos. Her voice was louder than intended, breaking the spell of silence that had enveloped the group. She felt eyes on her, the crowd's mixed interest forming a palpable tension. They were there to discuss professional ideals, yet here she was, invoking humanity, a gamble she felt compelled to take. In that instant, something clicked inside Emily. The lesson was more than just a professional mandate, it was a realization of what could define her future. She didn't just want to fit into the role she had always envisioned for herself, she needed to forge her own identity, one that balanced competence with compassion. Empathy doesn't diminish our professionalism, she continued, locking her gaze onto the man. It amplifies it. When we connect with others, whether clients, colleagues, or even distressed children, we enrich our capabilities. The polished man narrowed his eyes, dismissing her insight with a wave of his hand. "You're suggesting a sentimentality that has no place in our work," he retorted, but there was a subtle quiver in his voice, as if a crack had formed in his self-assured facade. "Is it sentiment to want to understand those we serve?" She pressed. As the words left her lips, Emily felt a wave of confidence wash over her. She was no longer merely responding to his challenge, she was making an assertion, claiming her position in this discourse. It's a bridge that connects expertise with true engagement. The crowd began to murmur, shifting slightly closer to her. To Emily's surprise, she noticed several nodding heads, from David's reassuring presence to the encouragement that sparkled in the eyes of the mothers standing nearby. Their collective support fortified her resolve. She realized she was not standing alone, she was igniting a thought process that reverberated beyond her own fears. As the seconds ticked by, she engaged in a silent dialogue with herself, weighing possibilities of furthering her argument against the potential backlash from the man. What if he escalated? What if she said something wrong? Yet, what if she didn't speak up at all? The weight of indecision pushed her forward, driving her to take a risk she never expected to embrace. Do we not owe it to ourselves and those we work with to be vulnerable, to acknowledge our shared humanity? She questioned. In blending empathy with our professionalism, we can redefine success, transform how we relate to each other, and emerge stronger, not weaker. A troubling silence settled again, heavier this time, as the uncomfortable truth hung suspended in the air. The polished man's glare hardened, yet beneath it, Emily detected a flicker of uncertainty. Was it possible she had struck a nerve, one that challenged his rigid understanding of what professionalism entailed? Emily's heart raced. She needed to push further, to confront the notion that success only lived in the sterile halls of emotional detachment. We can rise above the expectation of being only professionals. We can be so much more. The tension pulsated through the room, and she felt the collective anticipation swell. At that moment, it became clear, she wasn't merely participating, she was leading, carving out her niche in a landscape that often favored the impersonal. With her breath steadying, Emily faced the crowd directly. "I choose to be both empathetic and competent," she declared, pride illuminating her features. "I will never apologize for my compassion. Are you with me?" Responses were tentative at first, but a ripple of agreement coursed through the attendees, nudging Emily forward to deepen the conversation. Yet the polished man remained unmoved, tongue-tied, concentrating on maintaining his authority while faltering under her challenge. As discussions sparked and ideas began to flow, Emily felt a flicker of exhilaration mix with apprehension. She was on the brink of something profound. But as the conflicting energies battled inside her, she realized that with every word spoken, her voice grew stronger, her identity clearer, but the detachment of the polished man loomed like a storm cloud overhead. Would he retaliate, or could she sway his perspective? Only time would tell how this confrontation would reshape her journey. With fortune as her ally and determination fueling her resolve, she knew the path to her transformation lay ahead. But the question remained, what breakthrough moments awaited her next? The energy in the room surged, a dynamic force that seemed to sweep through the crowd. Emily could feel her heartbeat synchronize with the rhythm of a profound awakening. No longer the timid participant she used to be, she had emerged as an impassioned force. Yet, her mind was a battlefield, fluctuating between exhilaration and doubt. As discussions unfolded, varied perspectives clashed and merged. Emily engaged with anyone who approached her, drawing from her reservoir of empathy. When a seasoned mentor voiced concerns over merging personal touch with business, she listened attentively, reframing his observations into opportunities for growth. I appreciate your concerns. Why don't we explore how genuine engagement could enhance our methods? Don't we want authentic relationships with our clients? This was a delicate dance of dialogue, enabling her to leverage critical feedback while further solidifying her stance. The polished man watched from the sidelines, a statue of disapproval, his presence a constant reminder of the professional walls she yearned to dismantle. The crowd's interest piqued further, and she ventured to initiate small group discussions. Within these intimate exchanges, she prodded deeper into the fears and aspirations of her peers. This was her element, finding common ground that went beyond professional titles, tapping into something raw and relatable. The more they shared, the more she sparked courage in others. They began to mirror her enthusiasm, each revelation invigorating Emily's vision for the kind of leadership she wanted to embody. But amidst the victories, uncertainty lingered. What would it mean if she truly succeeded? Would she continue to face hostility from the polished man, or would others rally behind her vision of compassion-integrated professionalism? A pivotal moment arose when some attendees shared personal stories of vulnerability that transformed their careers. One woman, overwhelmed by her struggles as a single mother, spoke of how empathy in the workplace had led to actual performance breakthroughs among her team. When I acknowledged my own challenges, I empowered my colleagues to do the same, she said, her voice a soothing balm that resonated with many. Emily could feel the walls around her heart inching down as she drank in these stories of resilience. It was a revelation. The fear that had once gripped her began to dissolve, replaced by an exhilarating determination. She realized these diverse voices were not just anecdotes, they were the thread weaving a rich tapestry of her emerging philosophy. As the meeting drew to a close, Emily stood at the center of a lively hum, the previous standoff with the polished man feeling like a lifetime ago. The conversations were punctuated with laughter and insight, signaling a faint victory from which she hoped to build. She stepped to the side, heart pounding with achievement but also a spooling anticipation for what lay ahead. Yet, as she gathered her things, a thought struck her like lightning. What if her message needed not just advocates, but challengers too? The polished man had not confronted her verbally on her grounds, wisdom often appears cloaked in conflict. His reticence hinted that he might be grappling with her points internally. Would he lash out, perhaps seeking to challenge everything she had created? As she shared a final smile with the engaging attendees, a shadow loomed in her mind. What if his silence was a precursor to an explosive confrontation that could dismantle her newfound identity? With each step toward the exit, she felt a magnetic pull toward her own fears, but the promise of clarity ahead beckoned her. Was she ready to confront not just the polished man, but also the instincts that had held her back for so long? The air vibrated with uncertainty, and as she exited the room, she knew the time had come to face not only her critics but also the internal demons she still harbored. What would be the breaking point that would either empower her or inhibit the work she was striving to build? Emily stepped into the chaotic expanse of the airport terminal, the din of travelers a stark contrast to the focused energy she had just fostered in the conference room. She could feel her pulse thrumming, remnants of adrenaline pushing her forward. But the elation she felt was tinged with anxiety, that nagging uncertainty whispering that her metamorphosis might still be fragile and easily dismissed. As she navigated through the throngs of people, her thoughts turned inward. The polished man's noncommittal presence haunted her. What if he decided to confront her philosophy? Her mind's film played out scenarios where she defended her ideas against his steel-clad skepticism. Would she falter? Or would she rise to the occasion? She spotted a nearby cafe, the enticing scent of roasted coffee grounding her in reality. Seating herself at a small table, she allowed her fingers to wrap around the warm mug, its heat seeping into her skin, becoming a talisman against her racing thoughts. The familiar act of preparing herself for the next step began to settle her frayed nerves. With this momentary peace, she could review the tapestry of voices and experiences she had woven together, a delicate but powerful construct. Suddenly, a mother dashed toward the cafe, her face a portrait of distress. In her arms was a screaming infant, red-faced and inconsolable. Emily's heart tightened, the primal sound echoing the chaos of her own emotions. The instinct to aid stirred within her, compelling her to act. She approached the mother, who stood frozen, trapped in her fears of judgment. "Hi there," Emily said, her voice calm, her heart racing with a new sense of purpose. "Can I help?" The mother, caught off guard, hesitated before nodding, desperation eclipsing her pride. "I've tried everything," she murmured, her eyes glistening. "I don't know what to do. What if we try something together?" Emily suggested, her mind already racing to apply the empathy she had just explored. She lifted her hands gently, swaying them in a slow, rhythmic motion like they had with the discussions back in the conference room. "Can you show him my movement? Sometimes babies just need to feel that connection." The mother watched, perplexed but intrigued. Emily continued, her body instinctively finding a cadence. With each rhythm, the mother began to echo her movements, a glimmer of hope igniting in her weary gaze. Emily met the baby's eyes, channeling warmth and comfort, whispering soothing words. Gradually, the infant's cries softened, the tension morphing into curiosity. In that moment, Emily felt something awaken within her. She hadn't anticipated her capacity to influence an emotional shift, not just in the corporate world but in the raw intimacy of motherhood. The baby blinked back at her, and she found herself smiling, a newfound strength blooming in her chest. As the infant settled, the mother released a shaky breath, gratitude radiating from her. "You were incredible." "Thank you," she said, her voice laced with relief. Emily realized this wasn't just about helping the mother or the child, it was a reflection of her own transformation. She had effectively bridged gaps, a passion for connection mirrored in the spirit of her professional ideals. Yet, self-doubt still crept in. Could these small victories punctuate the larger struggle she now faced? As she prepared to leave the cafe, the polished man loomed in her mind once more. If she could tap into her empathy in moments like these, how could she apply that resolve in her upcoming challenges? She had tackled a stubborn infant's cries. What lay ahead would need similar courage. But would it be enough? The polished man's looming presence represented not just opposition, but the rigid expectations of a world she wanted to challenge. Clutching that newfound resolve tightly, she walked out of the cafe, the question still nagging: was she genuinely ready to confront the polished man, or was she to retreat back into doubt? Inhaling deeply, Emily stepped into the pulsing chaos of the airport once more. The horizon demanded her next move. Would she rise to the occasion, or fall back into the shadows she had only recently begun to escape? Emily stood at the threshold of her transformation, the electric hum of the airport around her sparking a fire within. She had come so far, from a shy young woman seated awkwardly on an airplane to a resolute force of compassion in her professional setting. But now, she faced the polished man again, symbolizing not only the challenges of her profession but also her own lingering self-doubt. With each step she took toward the exit, she clung to the affirmation of her experience with the distressed mother and child. It was an emotional reminder that her empathy mattered, it was a strength, not a liability. Crossing the terminal, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. As she made her way back into the busy throng, she spotted the polished man in a sleek suit engaging with a group of attendees, his demeanor a curated mask of professionalism. For a moment, Emily felt a rush of vulnerability wash over her. What if he dismissed her, berated her belief in empathy? But she quickly grounded herself, reminded of the warmth and connection she had experienced just moments ago. She approached him, heart steadying with every stride she took. "Excuse me," she said, her voice firm yet warm, drawing his attention from the group. "Could we talk for a moment?" His brow raised, eyebrows arching as if surprised. He nodded, stepping away from his peers, and Emily seized the opportunity. "I wanted to discuss our differing perspectives from earlier," she began, her confidence surging as she prepared to articulate her thoughts. "I believe empathy is critical in our field. It strengthens our approach and deepens our connections. The moment I interacted with that mother and child showed me just how impactful genuine concern can be. Her words came flowing out, each sentence gaining strength. He regarded her, arms crossed, but Emily noticed the subtle shift in his posture. Empathy's nice, but can it replace effectiveness? He questioned, his tone sharp but less dismissive than before. It doesn't replace effectiveness, it enhances it. Emily took a breath, determined. When I acknowledge the struggles and emotions of others, I don't just meet them where they are, I empower them to move forward. His eyes narrowed slightly as if probing for weaknesses in her argument, but she pressed on. Real change begins when we dare to connect on a human level. We can't fully support others' needs unless we understand them. A moment of silence hung in the air, thick with tension and expectation. Emily felt empowered, actively engaging in a discourse that not long ago would have sent her retreating in fear. His expression softened as he considered her points, allowing her earnest passion to shine through. I suppose there's merit in what you say, he finally acquiesced, his voice dropping slightly as others in the hallway passed them. Engagement does create opportunities. Exactly. She seized the moment, hopeful. And it doesn't have to detract from professionalism. In fact, it can elevate our practice and enrich our interactions, much like what happened when I assisted that mother. I witnessed transformation right before my eyes. His guardedness eased, and Emily sensed the collective tension shift towards curiosity as their interaction caught the attention of a few onlookers. He hesitated, the crack in his facade widening slightly. Perhaps I've been too rigid. It might be worth exploring these ideas further. The invitation to reconsider was all Emily needed to propel her conviction further. Let us transform this space together, embrace both competence and compassion as our guiding principles. With those words, she discovered a powerful realization. She had not only confronted her insecurities head-on, but she had also begun to shift the perceptions of those around her. As he nodded, a smile of recognition grew on his face, and she knew that she had made a meaningful impact in a mere moment. When their conversation drew to a close, she felt a whirlwind of emotions surge within her. She had achieved more than just gaining a foothold in a professional dialogue, she had stepped into her own strength, declaring her identity as not just a participant but as an active leader. As the polished man walked away, there was a notable shift, a sense of respect lingering in the spaces between them. She realized that she was no longer the shy girl on the flight or the hesitant young woman navigating networking events. Emily had grown into someone who could assert herself, illuminate the significance of empathy, and impact her community. The airport clamor faded behind her, and as she ventured out into the bright sunlight, the world felt entirely different. She had clearly defined her path, carved her identity in a space once dominated by her insecurities. Now, she stood proud, a burgeoning child psychologist, ready to harness her compassion as a potent tool for change, determined to leave an enduring mark on the lives of others. This was the final point of transformation in her journey, not just an internal shift but a visible catalyst for the professional future she had always envisioned. Every ounce of courage, every conversation she had navigated, had culminated into this moment of self-recognition. With the echo of her triumph enveloping her heart, she took one last deep breath, steadying herself for the next chapter of her life, her true life. As she walked toward her new horizon, she felt a sense of fulfillment unlike any other, which resonated deep in her soul. She had emerged not just as a professional, but as a force for compassion in her field. This was her moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly matters. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us get the conversation started. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. It's time to spread the message of overcoming adversity.